a mimer from Shabbos Parshas Matas Masa'y, Mevorch Machodesh Menachmov, of the year Tavshin Lamed Hey, 1975. Eila Masa B'nai Yisrael, these are the journeys of the B'nai Yisrael, Asher Yotzim Eretz Mitzrayim, that they went out of the land of Mitzrayim. Yadu Adir B'zeh, it's known the examination of this statement. Lahav in Lashon Eila Masa'y, Lashon Rabbim, to be able to understand why does it say these are the journeys in the plural. It says that they went out from the land of Mitzrayim. When they went out of Mitzrayim, there was only the first exit. There was the first journey that they traveled from Ramses, from the city of Ramses, which was still in Mitzrayim, to Sukkos, which was outside of Mitzrayim. So it was really only one journey going out of Mitzrayim at all. One journey from Ramses to Sukkos. So why does our parsha begin with the words, these are the journeys in the plural, if there was only one journey to leave Mitzrayim? And also we need to understand is why all the 42 journeys had to be detailed. Why was it important for the Torah to enumerate all the 42 travels, all the 42 stops that the Yidden took when they left Mitzrayim? Seemingly there's no real purpose in indicating exactly how and where we journeyed. Rashi explained what's the reason that the individual journeys were enumerated. So he says, "Shehu kedei la'askiram al kol hapratim v'amerois she'iru oz." It's to remind them on all the different things and the details and the events that occurred then. And he gives an example of a father that was traveling with his son, and then when they returned, they said, you remember, here you had a headache, here you had this issue, here you had that issue. But the Rebbe says that answer doesn't really apply for all time. Over there we're talking about the father and the child, and he's taking the child back through those places, and he's saying, you remember, we did such and such. This is only applicable by those that were present by the actual trip itself. That they need to remember all of these matters. And in such a manner they have to remember it. They're remembering it the way it was the first time around. So you're saying, when you are going through this event, it says, don't forget what happened the first time around you were there. Not like what it says that someone that reads the Megillah backwards, that he does not fulfill the mitzvah, that the Baal Shem Tov explains what's it mean backwards, not just literally that he reads the Megillah in a backwards order, but rather Kipirish Baal Shem Tov, like the explanation of the Baal Shem Tov, that what does it mean someone that reads the Megillah backwards? He's reading it as if something that occurred in the past, as an event that happened a long time ago. Rather, he has to read it in such a way of reliving it and feeling it. So therefore, the same thing over here, when the Yidden are passing through the wilderness, so we say, this is what you experienced here, this is what you experienced there. But the Rebbe says, this doesn't apply by people that weren't there. In other words, after the generation of the wilderness passed away, all of this doesn't seem to apply. But someone that wasn't present at that time, this is seemingly not something that's applicable by someone that wasn't present in the wilderness. So what is the reason for repeating it? This is where you had a headache. It wasn't me. It was my father, my grandfather, my 3,000 years ago parent, etc., etc. If so, even after Rashi's explanation, we still need an explanation. Why were the individual journeys enumerated in our parsha? Another question that Rebbe asks, Gam Tzarech Lavin, also we need to understand, why by every place does it say, and they traveled and they encamped? Why did it just say, they went from Sukkot to this city, and then to that city, and then to that city, and that encampment, and so on? Why does it have to say, they traveled and they encamped? They traveled and then they encamped, and listing the cities. You could just say, here are the cities that they went through. They went through city A, B, C, D, E, and G. They went to New York, they went to Florida, they went to here, they went to there. But it doesn't have to say, they went to Yerushalayim, then they encamped, then they traveled to Tel Aviv, and then they encamped. Why all that is necessary to be detailed? Second paragraph, but the idea behind this is, Torah is from the expression and language usage of lesson and a directive. It's a lesson and directive. Also this, the list of the journeys and the location, the need for mentioning the locations and talking about their traveling and encampment is also a lesson, a directive to each and every one in their service to their Maker. The idea of how this is a lesson for our service, it'll be understood according to what's brought down the name of the Baal Shem Tov. That the 42 journeys are to be found throughout the life of every Jewish person. Every Jewish person in their lifetime goes through 42 journeys, just like the Yidden from Egypt till they reached Eretz Yisrael went through 42 journeys. Through an appropriate giving thought and meditation in the person's life, and how it was Hashem acted with him from above. A person could find internally in their lifetime and through their lifetime correspondingly the 42 journeys that the Yidden went through in the wilderness. Now the Rebbe zooms out and says it's not just in an individual Yid's lifetime that you can find 42 journeys, but so too it's for the duration of the history of Yidden throughout all the generations. Sheklolus told us Yisrael Yeshbem Gamkim Membes Mafsois Elu, that the general history of Yidden, they also have these 42 journeys. In other words, throughout Jewish history, the Jewish people have, if again, like Hashem says, like the Rebbe says, by meditating into it, you could find throughout the entire history of the Jewish people 42 journeys that the entire history of the Jewish people spans. Now, zooming in and contrasting and contracting it into our day-to-day life. More specifically, there is the 42 journeys in the avodah of every single day. We have 42 journeys. How come? Why is that so? So the Rebbe bases it on what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that every single day we are journeying and leaving Mitzrayim. And just like then, the journeys out of Mitzrayim encompassed 42 journeys. The same thing, our daily journeying out of Mitzrayim also encompasses 42 journeys, as let's see inside. Who can move a mamavor betanya, like it's understood from what's explained in Tanya. Sheyesh no yitzias Mitzrayim b'chol yom v'yom. There is the exodus from Mitzrayim daily. Shemezem, move on from this understood. That's not just the leaving of the borders of Mitzrayim that takes place every day, but also from this understood, Gam le'inyan shar masoi shesh l'machol yom. So too all the rest of the journeys that the Eden went through the wilderness is also something that's to be found every single day by the Jews, just like they have a journey every single day. The tachlis avoid yitzias Mitzrayim ilovil eretz tov v'rechava. The ultimate avoid of going out of Mitzrayim is to arrive to the good and broad land. So just like physically had to go through these 42 journeys, the same thing my spiritual leaving Mitzrayim, which the goal is to arrive at a good and broad land, also has to go through these 42 steps. Masa'y the bezahu, in the order, and this is shetzarich laveres members on Masa'is. We need to go and cross 42 journeys. In the manner of traveling in these 42 journeys, then every journey he encamps in a way that is a set encampment, meaning that it's not temporary. Even though one would think that since we are leaving Mitzrayim, the goal is to arrive at Eretz Yisrael, so one may think that all the stops along the way, all the journeys along the way have no significance, but it's not that way. Every stop is something that's an encampment, it's something that they've settled and established. That's why the pasuk says, "Vayisu vayachnu." They journeyed and they encamped, because the encampment itself is part of the process. It's a settling there. It says, the Chazal say on the pasuk that by Hashem's mouth, in other words, by Hashem's command, they encamped, and by Hashem's command, they traveled. So the Chazal say as follows: since it's by Hashem's directive, it's as if they're settled over there, as if they're established over there. So from here we see that the encampments, even though there were 42 encampments, and this was seemingly just a transitional level between Mitzrayim and Eretz Yisrael, every encampment was significant and was like set in and of itself, and a person was considered established in that place. And so too, in a similar vein, it has to be the avoid of a person in Torah mitzvahs in a way that he's set and established and settled down. Every matter of Torah mitzvahs has to be in a way that it is settled and established in his soul. And not only Torah mitzvahs has to be something that's set and established, but v'gam ha'avoida b'divrei reshus also is avoida in permitted matters. Sheyiyu kol masech l'shem shemayim, that all your actions should be for the sake of heaven. U'b'chol d'rochecha da'eyu, and in all your ways you should know Him. So we're talking about your actions, your activities, not godly activities. Your ways, not godly ways. So since you are doing it for the sake of heaven, since you are knowing Hashem in that mundane activity, it also has to be in a way that it's set and established. Who can move on. It's also understood from what is said that in all your ways you should know Him. What's the idea of knowing? It's connected with the level of das, and we know that Alter Rebbe connects das with something that's a very powerful and strong connection. Like to explain in Tanya, the idea of das is being bound up with strength and being established. So now the Rebbe is going to explain what is this about that even the encampments and the journeys on the way has to be in a way that is set and established. Second paragraph on the page. The explanation of this matter is in the general idea of these journeys, we find something that's a wonder. The majority of the travels took place after the giving of the Torah. At the time of the giving of the Torah, the Jewish people arrived at an unbelievable, lofty type of level of perfection. Hein begufam, both bodily did they reach a state of perfection. How much more so in their souls did they reach a level of perfection. Until it says that Yisrael encamped, and it uses the word not vayachnu like in other encampments, but it says vayichan in the singular. It's the level of Yachid that's even higher than one. One means that there is something else that could follow it. Yachid means that it's the only one. So it's the highest, most level. So we say it's Vayichan Lashon Yachid, the highest, most level the Yidden attained at the time of the giving of the Torah. Since that is how powerful the effect of the giving of the Torah was, how could there be traveling through a wilderness? Once the Torah was given, we reached such a high level. Our bodies were in a state of perfection. It says everybody was healed, etc., etc., and our souls reached a high level of perfection. If so, we need an explanation. What's the idea of the journeys after the giving of the Torah? They were still in a wilderness of nachash, sarav, akrav, snakes, and poisonous serpents, and scorpions, and a thirst that there's no water over there. How could there be, when Yidden reached this ultimate state of perfection, they spent most of their journeys in such a barren place? And this barrenness was actually indicative of a spiritual wasteland. Especially according to what's explained in Chassidus, the Nachash, Sarav, Akrav, these three descriptions of these dangerous type of animals that dwelt over there in the wilderness, and Gimel Klippus Atmeis, these correspond to the three impure klippas. The Lachura seemingly Ma'in Gimel Klippus Atmeis, Lacharei Matan Torah. Where does the three impure klippas come about after the giving of the Torah? We were elevated to the utmost highest level. If we were elevated to the utmost highest level, we should be directly in Eretz Yisrael, not traveling through a place of Gimel Klippus Atmeis. So the Rebbe goes on and says, but the idea behind this is, Kitachlis ha'il v'yitzias Mitzrayim, nifal dafkai de shepoilim gam b'midbar nochash sarav v'akra v'tzimoin asher ein b'moyim. The ultimate ascent of going out of Mitzrayim is affected specifically when we influence also the wilderness, a place of a snake and a poisonous snake and scorpions, and a thirst that there's no water over there. That is the true leaving of Egypt. The true departure of Egypt is what influence we have even on negative things. The idea and the content of going out of Mitzrayim is it's that he's going out of all types of constraints and boundaries. Mitzrayim is from the word meitzar. Meitzar means constraints, limitations, boundaries, constrictions. And not only constrictions of a negative sort, like Mitzrayim in the simple sense was Ervas Ha'aretz, the most immoral place in the earth. So it was a clippidic constraints that we were leaving, but also Chassidus explains there are constraints also in holiness, where a person is doing things in the holy, but his holiness is limited. And we're saying he has to break out of those barriers. That's Yitzias Mitzrayim. So he's saying, Gam mitzrorim v'gvulim de kedusha, even the going out of Egypt is leaving also behind the constraints and boundaries of holiness. V'lechein, therefore, lefnei shemagim lemidbar the nachash sarav ha'akrav, before we reach a wilderness that's inhabited by these poisonous animals, we still have not yet left behind the constraints and boundaries in the ultimate fashion, in the most perfect manner, in the most complete manner. How is that? What does it make any sense? We're trying to leave behind the negative, and here we're entering the negative. So he's saying as follows: the entering of the negative means transforming it. If I am divorced from the negative, I've not transformed it. If I'm not transformed it, I'm still within the boundaries and limitations of holiness. When have I broken out of all boundaries? When I could take negative and transform it to positive. So he says that Kigam Tzadik Gomer even a complete tzaddik that serves Hashem with a great love of delight. Harehu yesh misha'oyev. There is still someone here, there is still an ego that loves, because he loves Hashem. And once you have a matter of loving, when I love something, then that means there must be an I that's doing the loving. Because if I don't care about myself, so then there is no care about someone else. Or as in pop psychology, they say, you can't love someone else unless you love yourself. That's the whole idea of love. Love means that person makes me complete, makes me feel good. If I don't care about the me, so there can't be any love. So therefore, this tzaddik, a complete tzaddik, has this highest level of love, the greatest form of love, a love that's called a love of delight, because he's so close and delighting in Hashem. But the ego is still there. It's an ego of Kedusha. It's a yesh of Kedusha, but it's still a yesh. So therefore, he hasn't completely left the boundaries. He hasn't completely had Yitzias Mitzrayim from Kedusha. From the boundaries of Kedusha, he hasn't completely left. V'shleimus ha'yitzias Mitzrayim, the complete and perfect going out of Mitzrayim, it's when he goes out completely out of his being. This is affected through the avodah of tshuva. Like the Chazal say, in a place that Baal Tshuva stand. Even complete and whole tzaddikim are not able to stand over there. Like it's explained in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains, how could it be that when a person does tshuva, his intentional sins should become like mitzvahs? I can understand that the intentional sins will be completely erased, but why would his intentional sins become like mitzvahs? Hoyel val yodam dafke boil at simoin va'ava rabba beyeser says gf shalag ye lai david satzadikim, because since through the aveirus that he did, through the zedoinus that he did, he comes to a greater thirst and a more powerful love that one would not be able to reach through the avodah of a tzaddik. A tzaddik is very comfortable with Hashem. He never felt far from Hashem. Therefore, he doesn't have such a powerful yearning. The Baal Tshuva, on the other hand, the very aveirus that he did, the very zedoinus that he did, the very intentional sins that he did, that goads him, that pushes him, that triggers him to a greater love. So since those very aveirus are pushing him to a greater love, so they are contributing to the love. So in that process, they become transformed to good. In a similar sense, not exactly, but it's similar to when I eat food, and that food afterwards gives me energy to daven and to learn, so that food becomes elevated and becomes part of my Torah mitzvahs. In a similar vein, since my Averis are the reason that I'm reaching a level of love that even a tzaddik doesn't have such a level of love and yearning for Hashem, so that Avera that I did in the past becomes a merit for me, becomes elevated like in that love. This thirst brings the person to totally lose his existence. It's not like the love of the tzaddik, that there's an ego and a self that's loving. This thirst and yearning for Hashem, because he was so far away, makes him lose himself entirely. He's completely lost. The extreme example is of Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, that he was completely subsumed in his yearning for how distant he was for Hashem, that his soul expired because of, he felt how far he was from Hashem because of all of his Averis that he did. But in a similar vein, even without physically expiring, the person spiritually expires and leaves his being and his existence behind because of his great thirst that he has for Hashem, which was caused, why was he so thirsty? Because he was so far from Hashem. That's higher than the tzaddik's love, that there is an ego over here, there's a yesh, there's someone that loves Hashem. It's the Baal Shem Tov's famous Torah and teaching. It says, my soul thirsts to you, my flesh yearns for you, and so too in holiness I should see you. It says, in a parched and thirsty land without water I have thirsted for you. So too in holiness I've seen you. What's the connection between the thirst that he has and the yearning that he has in this land without water, to also in holiness I should see you? So the Baal Shem Tov says, Halavai ba'kodesh chazisicha. The Baal Shem Tov says, Halavai, when I'm in a state of holiness, I should see you and have the same thirst that I had when I was far away from you, when I was in a state of thirst, when I was in the wilderness. Specifically in a parched and thirsty land without water, there's the ultimate thirst to become completely subsumed in Hashem. So therefore, we find this idea that the Baal Shem Tov expresses in Keim B'Kodesh Chazisicha, Halavai B'Kodesh Chazisicha, that the true type of yearning for Hashem is by somebody in a thirsting land. Now we can understand the purpose and the idea of even after Matan Torah, where we were on such a high spiritual level that wasn't enough. We had to pass through the majority of our journeys in a parched and thirsty land to be able to reach an even higher level of going out of our constraints, going out of ourself, going out of our ego, going even out of the boundaries of Kedusha. The 4 lines in the bottom, that's the content of the idea of the journeys in our service of Hashem. The noise of in addition to the journeys, that the journeys is the idea of the avodah in Kedusha itself. That is part of what the journeys are. Until with our journeys we are traveling towards to reach a love of delight, the ultimate level of service. The less the Zohar says there's no service like the service of love. In addition to having that, the journey specifically in the wilderness, in a place of Nachash, Saraf, Akrav, is even higher. He will reach to journeys in the wilderness of the nations, indicating again the idea of a desert, of having to do with the nations and klippas. Through this he will reach the ultimate thirst, and which is the complete bittul of a person's self, and completely leaving his own ego and leaving the boundaries and constraints even of Kedusha. Through this, he goes at length and he thinks into and he resolves to arrive at a good and broad land beyond any existence and any ego, even an existence and an ego of Kedusha. Through this we reach to the land that is good, very, very much so. What's the twice that it says moed? It's the advantage of the avodah of tshuva. This is also what it says twice in the Haftorah of in the 7 weeks of comfort after Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, that one of the Haftorah says, I am the one who comforts you and consoles you. Why does it say twice I? Because indicating the higher level of I, of Hashem's very essence, that results from tshuva. One I, that's like the Anoich Hashem Elokecha, that says by the Aseres HaDibros. The Aseres HaDibros, the Yidden are on the level of tzaddikim. That's one level of Hashem's I, which I surpasses and transcends all the names of Hashem. But Anoichi, that's the level of tshuva, which is twice I, doubly and higher than the ordinary avoid of tzaddikim, like it says ma'od about Eretz Yisrael, twice ma'od. And that is reached only when we overcome the constraints and constrictions and the shalosh satmeis that's to be found in the wilderness. What it says in Rashi, that by Har Tover it says twice Anoichi. This is in the Shira of Shiras Dvoira, when she conquered Barak. She conquered Sisra, and she was singing a song of praise to Hashem. And over there she says twice the word Anoichi over there in reference to the Mount Tover. What's the idea of that? Because over there they were overcoming the negative that allowed the Yidden to be attacked by the non-Jews. So kidavkai de avodas adeh tshuva boim lein kiflaim t'shia. Specifically through tshuva does one come to a double strength. That's why lamayla gam meaning anoichi pamachal shnemer matan Torah, even higher than anoichi that says once by matan Torah. And by Har Tover, it says twice Anoichi. And the same thing, by Hashem consoling us after we do tshuva, and we're going to have the Beis HaMikdash rebuilt, Hashem is going to console us with a twice Anoichi. And Eretz Yisrael is twice Ma'od. All of these things indicating the double energy that we get from tshuva, which is indicated by the transformation of the shalosh satmeis of Nachash, Saraf, Akrav in the Midbar, the wilderness. From all this understood also concerning the avoida of a person daily. That the avoida of a person daily has also, we said before, the Sheyesh Ba Membes Masa'is canal that has in it the 42 journeys, like we said before. Shal Zen Namar, concerning this, it says, Yetze Adam Lefal Lo Yavidasi Adi Odav. Concerning a person's daily avodah, it says a person goes out to his work and to his service until the evening. In other words, a person goes to work daily from morning to night. The beginning of a person's avodah is in davening. Like it says, Abba Ben Yamin used to say that my davening should be close to my bed, meaning I don't interrupt my day by doing something else between getting up and davening. I daven immediately after getting up. Afterwards from shul he goes to learn. And afterwards he's involved in the ways of the world, meaning in making a living. Which means the avodah and refining and elevating the sparks of the world. Only through this third level, engaging and elevating the sparks of the world, Days of Magin L'Shleimus Shalamayla Gam Mit Torah V'Tfilah Shalifnei. We reach a perfection beyond Torah and davening prior to this. Al derech Mailos Avodas HaTshuva, similar to the advantage of Avodah of Tshuva. V'zeu Inyan Ulavidose Adei Orev. That's the idea of to his work and to his service every evening, until the evening. What's the idea until the evening? So he says, Ki Yedua Pirish Bezat, is known, the explanation, the word Adi Orev, the simple meaning of Orev means evening. But a deeper explanation is the Orev hu Loshen Arevis Umesikus. Orev is from the word sweetness. Till he reaches, when he does this type of avodah of tshuva, he reaches a very sweet level. So this is on a daily basis. So too it's in the general days of the life of a person. The entire lifetime of a person is called, he goes out every day to, a person goes out to his work and to his service until the evening, like the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that a person's service is, his entire lifetime is like a day's work. The general avodah is by day. It says till evening. Evening you go home. You don't work anymore. By day you do the work. What's the significance of doing work during the day? Because it says, Anan Paola Di'imamanan. We are day workers. Meaning that our job is to bring day into the world, to bring light, daylight into the world. The avodah is the idea of toil. Adam la'amal yula, that a person was born to toil. Hainum loidak amal Torah k'maskanas haGemara, not just the toil of Torah study, like the Gemara concludes alagam amal sicha v'amal malacha daksokadait b'Gemara, but also the toil of speech and the toil of work, like the Gemara considers it initially, that a person needs those type of toils as well, which means the toil in worldly matters, the toil of elevating the world, and the toil of davening. Through the toil in all of these things, the idea of toil is similar to the avodah of tshuva. So we arrive to the level of sweetness, mesikus. Concerning this, it says, I am dark and beautiful, daughters of Yerushalayim. What does that mean? Only out of the darkness. Vayirida lamata, and the descent below, specifically engaging with the world, elevating the world, transforming the negative, transforming the wilderness. That's where beauty comes about. This type of avodah, to cross and go beyond all the constraints and boundaries, also the constraints and boundaries of Kedusha, comes from Moshe and Aaron. They empower us to be able to exit these type of limitations and boundaries. That's why it says, by Elam Masa B'nai Yisrael, B'yad Moshe Aaron, it concludes. Let's explain the Torah, the Moshe who Sheshvina the Malka. Moshe Rabbeinu is called the Unterführer, the escort of the king being Hashem, our Chosn. Shuhu Hamamshich Malmaila Lamata Kolam Shachas, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that escorts Hashem and draws down from above to below everything that needs to be drawn down. Till it draws down the root and the source of Neshamas Yisrael, that it should come down here below, just like it is above. That's what it says, that Moshe transcribed their leavings to their journeys. They're going out to their journeys. Why does it have to emphasize that Moshe wrote it down? He wrote down the entire Torah. Here he's enumerating all the journeys. Why does it have to say that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down? What's the significance of Moshe Rabbeinu's writing this down, that the Torah is telling us more than anything else that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote down the Torah? The Ein V'Kosav Ela V'Chosam, the Gemara says that when it says V'Kosav and he wrote, it really means he sealed. A seal indicates giving something like a seal of approval. It strengthens it, it solidifies it. Moshe Rabbeinu drew down in a way of sealing and power and strength their goings out. What goings out are we talking about? Where the neshamas came out from. The seal of how the neshamas came from above. Shoirish, the root, umoitza, and the coming out of the neshama. Masa'ayim, to their journeys. Kifisha neshama yeredis lamata, the way the neshama descends below. That's what Moshe empowered and strengthened and drew down from the source of the neshama to the way they travel down here. By days and through that, it says afterwards, Ve'ela Masa'ayim lemoitza'ayim, and these are their journeys to their goings out, which the Mamorim always speak about it. First of all, why does it repeat itself? Secondly, why does it flip it around? First it says moitza'ayim lemasa'ayim, then it says masa'ayim to moitza'ayim, because by Moshe Rabbeinu drawing down from above to below in a way of sealing it, so now they become elevated and their journeys are back to where they came out from, to their source. It's about the ascent from below to above. For this sake, to be able to reach the ascent, we also need the empowerment of Aaron, the escort of the queen. That we are Hashem's queen, we are Hashem's bride, and he escorts us. He's our unterführer. Hamaylas Neshamas Yisrael, he elevates Jewish souls. Like we said before, that's the other pasuk that says, Eila Masa'ayim L'moitza'ayim. The neshama shenasata bi tahiri. The neshama that you placed within me is pure. V'shar shai bechinas tihiru ilar, its root is in the supernal purity and brilliance. Even more so, nosata bi, you Hashem's very essence placed it in me. Despite its very high source, specifically and only through its descent down here below, comes about in it a much greater ascent. Like it says, that a well, the well, or the spring of gardens, a well of living water, v'noizlim in Levanon, and they are flowing out of Levanon. Meaning, specifically through Neshamas Yisrael descending below, in a way of a well of living water, just like a well comes from the depth of the earth. The same thing, we have descended into the earth. We are dealing with the lowest. The neshama goes up to the level of those that flow out from Levanon. The flowing out is noisel, is similar to the level of the mazel of the neshama. Its source above, from where it flows from, and even higher. Even higher, we reach through our descent down here below. We reach even higher than the place from which the neshama descended. By days of boim l'siyum and beis hamasois. Through that we arrive at the conclusion of the 42 journeys al Yarden Yerichai, on the Jordan of Yerichai. The Koi al Mashiach Tzidkenu, this is referring to Mashiach. The Chsiv Bey, it says concerning Mashiach, we read this in the Haftorah of Achron Shal Pesach, Veherichai beyiras Havaya, he will give him the scent of the fear of Hashem. So the Chazal derive from it, what is the idea of scent? The Moirach V'doin, that Mashiach will be able to judge by his scent. So that's what Yarden Yerichai is, it's hinting at Mashiach, that we are going through all the 42 travels to reach Mashiach. like Avram v'loik Yitzchak, not like Avram Avinu, not like Yitzchak that were they called the Beis Hamikdash the mountain, and they called it a field. It says Yitzchak went out to the field. Yaakov Shekari Bayis, but Yaakov called it a home, which indicates a house, indicates permanence, not like a mountain or a field. And the way that the inheritance of Yaakov, when Yaakov was promised the land of Eretz Yisrael, he was promised a land without boundaries. It says, you shall burst forth to all the four directions on the compass. He didn't give him any limits. Bekarav mamish, soon mamash.